to the first of many tutorials soon to be available at studio4media.com. My name is Tim Weaver, and I'm going to be taking you through the ins and outs of this program right here, After Effects. And together we're going to be making some pretty cool stuff, starting with this. Nice. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what in the world is it about this logo intro that makes it so cool? You know, there's something about it that just makes you, you really like it. Well, I'm going to let you in on a little secret, okay? Tip number 1 from studio4media.com. Okay, at the very end of this video, if you notice, the very end, it fades to black. Now this is a little known secret that we use here in the industry. If you fade your videos to black, that makes them cool. People like that. People like to see it fade to black. Now notice in the very beginning, we don't fade in from black, okay? If we faded in from black, then this video would be awesome. But as it stands, we're just at the cool status. So, okay, enough of that. Moving on. Let's go into After Effects and see how we create this, okay? I'm going to go to Composition, New Composition, and call this one BG for background. And we're just going to be using the NTSC DV widescreen, so just 720 by 480. You can make it whatever size you want, but that's the size we're going to use. Okay, then I'm going to be making a new layer. Let's go to Layer, New, and we're going to be making a solid. And again, call this BG for background. And we're going to want kind of a dirty gray color. Something like that. That's more pink. Let's go into the solid settings and change it more to like a gray. Kind of like that there. Okay. Now let's go ahead and make another solid. And we're going to put V for vignette. Honestly, I don't know how to spell vignette, so that's why we're just putting V for now. And if we go up here to the top, you see this little rectangle tool. That's the mask tool. If you just hold on that, go over to the ellipse tool, or you can shift through by pushing Q until you get to this ellipse. And if you double click on it, it creates a circle or an ellipse around our composition here. And inside, we're going to change this mask from add to subtract. So now it's going along the edges here. And then we're going to feather this out a little bit and also turn down the opacity. And really feather it out like that. So something like that. So that way it adds a little bit of depth to the scene here. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now let's go ahead and create another new composition. Same size, and call this one logo. And here's where you can put any logo you want. You can have an image, you can have text. We're just going to be using text for now. So go over here to the text tool. And we're going to type in Studio 4. All right. And we'll make this color black so we can see it. And scale it up, and we definitely need a different font, so let's go ahead and just use a let's see what Arial Black looks like. Let's just use Helvetica. Bring them a little closer together. And let's go ahead and make the 4 a little bit bigger as well. And change that color to blue. Maybe like a baby blue. Okay. Let's center it up, bring up the title action safe, and just put it in the middle there. Looks pretty good. And let's go ahead and create another new composition and call this one Shatter. And we're going to be importing our logo to the Shatter. And let's make a new camera, layer, new camera, and just do it 35mm, it's fine. Okay, now let's add the shatter effect to our logo. So with the logo layer selected, go to Effect, Simulation, Shatter. Now don't freak out, our text just disappeared, but as you can see we have this weird looking wireframe wheel, and all of a sudden there's bricks flying if we scroll through. Now if you go up here to the view, right now it's set to wireframe and forces. If we just go up to rendered, you're going to see, boom, there's your text. You can calm down now, but you still see we have this really lame looking ugly bricks falling apart, and we don't want that. So let's go into the shape pattern, change it from bricks to glass. Now I'm going to go ahead and jump back into this wireframe mode so we can see what the glass shatters look like. So now we can see how many there are, what they're going to look like when they explode, and now you're glad you have this weird looking thing because you can see what's going on, See, it all works out. But these pieces are a little bit too big. So let's go here to the repetitions and increase that quite a bit, probably like 55 or so. And now we have a whole bunch of little pieces flying out, and that's going to look a lot better. Underneath the physics, let's go ahead and turn the gravity to 0, so that way we have them coming straight out. It's flying straight towards the camera. Makes it look a lot cooler. Let's go back into our rendered mode here and see what that looks like. Okay, so not too bad. And if you notice here, I'm actually running at half resolution, so that's just because when you start doing stuff with this shatter, it starts to get a little slow on your system, but that's why everything looks a little pixelated on here. But okay, let's go ahead and make some more changes. If we scrub through here, you can see we kind of got this oval right here where no pieces are, and I don't really like that, so I'm going to turn the depth up a bit. You don't want to turn it up too much, otherwise you're going to have no effect, but I'm going to turn the depth up to probably about 0.15, and that just kind of gets rid of that bigger hole, because see, if we turn this down, it creates a bigger and bigger hole in there. So but I think 0.15 is going to be good enough. And then right now, if we look here, our animation is about 2 seconds long at most, and we want that to be a little bit longer. So if we go to the strength and turn that down to about 2.8 or so, it's going to take quite a bit longer, more like 4 or 5 seconds to finish that animation. So that's going to look a lot better. Okay, now let's go ahead and add a little animation to it. Let's go to camera and let's open up its transform properties here. And I'm going to set a keyframe on the point of interest, position, and orientation. I'm going to scrub through to where the animation is about, not all the way over, but somewhat so there's still some shattered pieces. I'm going to zoom in quite a bit. I'm going to rotate it up, zoom in, and I'm going to choose the toggle switch up here. Again, if you can't see this, you just hold that down and you can see the track XY camera tool. And zoom in a little bit more to where we can't see any pieces. Now, if we play this back, you notice that the pieces come in from behind the camera, rotate, and then suck together to create our logo. Boom, just like that. There it is. So let's go ahead and play this back and see how it looks as far as the speed and everything of it. Okay, so it looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit slower than what I had on my original example, but still good nonetheless. Now, you're going to notice that we have a pretty serious problem, and that is that this is actually going backwards. Remember, we want the pieces to suck in. We want it to go this way. But we are going to address that issue later. For now, let's go ahead and go back to the project and drag and drop our background comp into here. So we have the background, and let's make a new composition and call it main. And let's go ahead and import our shatter effect. Now, you can see here we have the shatter effect with the background. It's looking pretty cool. Everything's coming together real nicely. Sucking together. Now let's go ahead and address that problem I was mentioning earlier about how it's going backwards. There's a pretty simple solution to fix this problem. If you right click on Shatter, go to time, hit enable time remapping, and we're going to scrub forward a little bit to where we can't see any pieces, set another keyframe, and now all we're going to do is reverse these two keyframes. So essentially what we're doing is we're reversing the order of time. So now it's going to start from 3 seconds and work its way backwards. And that fixed our problem. And you want to make sure, if you notice it start to go the other way, that's because we have another keyframe down here. We want to delete that, make sure we have no extra keyframes. So it comes together, sticks, and that's what we want for now. Okay, looking pretty good. Now, included with this tutorial available for download is a pre-rendered optical flares. If we drag that in the comp real fast, you're going to see here what it is. It's just an optical flare that I got from videocopilot.net, and just kind of comes along, flashes, and goes across the screen. Now this is going to be a little bit bigger than our comp, so I'm going to scale it down. If you just hold shift while you're scaling instead of getting it all messed up like this, it'll keep it proportional. So I'm going to set this to add, and so if we go to toggles and switches here, change the mode to add, and that gives it a little bit of brightness and is now transparent. If we scrub through this, you're going to see our lens flare start. Now we want it to start a little sooner, so let's take this towards the beginning here. And essentially the goal is to get this flash here to line up when our composition, or when our lettering right there, that flash, is complete. Right about there, 6.18 seconds is when we want our letters to be sucked in all the way. So let's go back to the shatter and go to the effect controls, and we want it to take even longer, so we're going to adjust this strength here and bring it down even more. So now it's going to take about, that's probably a little bit too much. Bring it up to 1.6 or so. Let's see what that looks like. No. Getting closer. Getting closer. Let's stretch out our time remap here. That's another way you can slow down things if you just stretch out your time remap, so it's going to take longer for this to play. So right at the flash, right there. We want it to be sucked together. It comes in and then flashes. And I'm going to bring this past just a little bit, past the flash. So it's still moving as the flash builds up. And that way it'll look real cool. If you see here, you can see the cracks all inside of it. Okay, so this is coming together. Let's go back to the shatter and pull up the strength a little bit so we don't have any particles in our scene, or any shatter pieces, I should say. Like that. So at the very beginning there's nothing. Comes in right as the flare starts, and then sucks together when it flashes. Now, for those of you that have optical flares and you're wondering which flare I'm using, I'll show you real fast. Let me create a new solid, just a black solid for now. Go to Effect, Video Copilot, Optical Flares. Inside of the options here, I'm just using this underneath the light, this beam effect. And I think I turned up the multi-iris here so you can see it in the streaks. Wherever the streaks are, turn those up quite a bit so you can really see them. And even the sparkle, I think I turned up and made it a little bit longer so you can see the sparkle in those irises. Then all I did was take it and animate it, so it was started out like this here and came up and came across the screen here, and then I'll just turn up the brightness whenever I wanted the flash to happen, and then turn it down even lower whenever it was time to just go across. And I think I added some dirty lens effects too, but just in case you're wondering, if you want to do it by yourself, that's what I used. So back to this, comes up and then flashes. Let's go ahead and add some shadow effects to it, because right now it's looking pretty flat. It doesn't have a lot of depth to it. Let me turn this up to full resolution so we can kind of see it better. What I'm going to do is go back into the shatter, and let's take the logo composition and let's duplicate it. Control D, Command D if you're on Mac, or you can just go to Edit, Duplicate, and let's take it and rename it. You hit Enter on the keyboard to rename whatever layer you have selected. Name it Shadow. Hit Enter again. Let's go to the Effect Controls, and we're going to add a tint. So go to Effect, Color Correction, Tint, and all that does is take all the color out of it. And you can see here if I turn our logo layer off, that 4 is now gray, and we want it to be black. So if we go to the Map White and change that to black, it makes all the colors there black. Now with the shadow composition selected, let's go ahead and go to Effect, Blur and Sharpen, CC Radial Fast Blur. And right away you can notice we have pretty cool looking shadow, and you can play with this amount right here and go really crazy with it. We're going to bring it to about 45 or so, and we're going to change the center position as well. We want it to come up from the top. This is a really cool effect. It makes it look like there's light coming from behind it, which will add a lot to it once we have it in our main composition. Let's go ahead and duplicate the shadow, and now if we take our amount and pull it down, you can see we're starting to get this really nice shadow edge along here, and that's going to really help with it looking 3D, give it some depth. And now we can take our other shadow one and pull this one up if we want, bring it back down, however we want to do it. Now if we look in the main here, you can see it looks like that light is causing the shadow to come from behind. So we can even turn this up a little more. And if we scroll through the the very beginning, you can see that each one of the pieces also has that effect on it, which will make for a really cool effect as they're all coming together. Just makes it look like that light is just shining from the back. Now let's go ahead and add a light sweep effect as this comes together and this light comes across. We want to have a light sweep go across the logo. But first, let's go back into our shatter, and let's take this background layer and let's delete it, because now we just have a pure alpha matte. And in the main, we'll put the background in the main. Now the reason why we're doing this is because we'll have more control over our shatter, and also when we do our light sweep, if I go to Effect, Generate CC Light Sweep, it's going to affect only our text. And if I would have had that the other way around, put the background inside of our shatter, you see it's going to affect the entire layer, and we don't want that. So let's take this light sweep, and it's going to be really simple. All we're going to do is right when this light fades down and starts going across, we're going to set a keyframe at the center, and by the time it gets to the end, or however long we want it, just drag this across. Let's take a look. Looking pretty good. And you can adjust the timing if you'd like, make it go slower or faster, or you can even adjust some of the settings, the width, the intensity, if you really want to get it really bright on there. But this is looking pretty good for what we're doing. Now at the very end, we want the logo to explode, and there's a pretty simple way of doing this without having to mess with the time remapping and all of that. All we do is go to our composition, create new composition. We'll call this explosion end, and we'll just go into our project and drag our logo onto it, and our other logo, our shatter composition, we'll just copy, Command C or edit copy, and we'll go into the explosion end and do edit paste. Now we have a shatter effect on this as well. Let's make a couple adjustments to it though. Let's go to the force. Let's bring the depth to 0.10 and pull the strength up to 5. Then let's go to the physics, and we're going to want to turn the mass variance up to 100. That just gives it a little bit more weight and it's really pushing towards the camera, but it also sticks the pieces together, so there's not as many pieces as you can see. So if we go up to the shape, let's take it from 55 to 100 repetitions, and that's going to make it look a lot better. And that's all we need for our explosion end. So if we go back to the main here, drag in our explosion end, and we want this to be right where this one ends, and we actually might need to make our composition a little bit longer. Composition settings, you can change it to however long you want. Right here, 20 seconds. Gives us a little bit more room to work with. We'll just line it up at the end. And make sure we have it above the background composition. And also make sure your background composition is stretched out. Let's go along here. The light sweep just finishes, and then we have the explosion come. And you notice that all the shadows will cut off, and that's actually the effect I was going for when I first created it. It's really simple. If you want the shadows to be there again, you just do what we did before. But I'm going to go ahead and add another flare to it to make it look even better. So just go to Layer, New, Solid, just call it Flare. Doesn't matter what color it is. Go to Effect, Video Copilot, Optical Flares, Options, and you have a whole bunch of flares to pick from. I think I used the motion graphics. I don't remember which one I used, but you can just pick any flare, doesn't really matter. This one looks pretty cool. And we'll set it the transfer mode to add. Let's line it up pretty much right behind our logo, maybe even a little bit above it. And we'll adjust the brightness. And let's just animate the center position to go across the screen. Take our flare, make sure it doesn't come on until our end explosion starts. Right about there. The moment it starts, we'll take the center position, set a keyframe, and drag it towards the end, and drag it all the way across. Just gives it a little bit of motion as the explosion happens. Now if we just play this back, see what it looks like. Okay, looks good. You can make your explosion however fast or slow you want. This one looks pretty good how it is. And also, I think in the original example I added a camera shake using Twitch. You can see here, as the explosion happens, the camera starts to shake. If you don't have Twitch from Video Copilot, I highly recommend you get it. I use it in almost everything I do, one way or another. It's a very, very cheap plugin and does a lot. So I recommend getting that. That's basically the effect that we have. That's basically everything. Except for one major component. Let's go to Layer, create a new solid, call this Fade Out. Make sure it's set to black because that's what you need. Comp size, put it at the very bottom. Hit T to pull up the opacity properties. And hit keyframe. Drag it to the end, make another keyframe. Set our first one to 0. And now, actually let's pull it to the top. Now, we have a fade out. And that's what we want. Alright, thanks a lot for watching, guys. Hopefully this tutorial was informative and you learned some things from it. My name is Tim Weaver with Studio 4 Media, and we'll see you next time.